I used to do a bunch of clinics called Prototype Challenge, where you take different things in a prototype photo and then try and model them. This is just a part of that theme. What I think is interesting about this photograph is the first four cars behind the engine. There's a New York Central, Texas and Pacific, Pennsylvania, and Southern Pacific. People that think they have to have cars that their railroads interchange with are not taking full advantage of all the rolling stock they have on their layouts. This is kind of disjointed in a way, but hopefully I won't confuse everybody too much. But my old layout was of just the M&L through May City. And what we're looking at here is basically the south end of town. As they come north, the first thing they come up to is the interchange with the trolley, the May City Lake. Then right past that is the interchange with the Milwaukee, which is running east and west here. And in that little triangle created by the Milwaukee and the M&L, there was a RIP track operation there run by General American, who leased all the cars that our Armor leased all the cars from that were used the packing plant further north. This shows that yard. Basically, it's about 8 blocks long. It goes from 1st Street to 8th Street. I used to live just off picture the center left here, so I could walk over there anytime I wanted to and look at stuff. And this was left out of the railroad when I first built it. Here's another photo. This one I thought was quite interesting. When they were putting in the 4-lane highway, you can see they moved the whole yard to the east. Then they dug out and they built a bridge. You can see them putting the tracks back on. And then they moved the tracks back onto the bridge and then finished digging out for the street. That I thought was quite interesting. But this is the railroad the way it was originally built. I wanted to have the ability to run trains a continuous loop. So you can see there's a lift up bridge there. And the staging would be at the top of the photograph here. There's 3 staging tracks, and they were divided off from the railroad, the short divider. So trains would come and go from that staging yard back there. And actually, I had planned to do the work that was to be done at the middle yard at what was known as the North Yard, or I call the depot area, which is that group of buildings at the bottom of the photo. The cement plants are up at the upper right, the packing plant on the right, and then south of town was the Swift fertilizer plant. And that's just before the lift bridge there. So that basically covers from north of town to south of town, or about 5 miles, I guess, total. One of the issues with that one was from Craftsman back in 2008, I think December 2008. But anyway, one of the problems with this design was there wasn't a lot of room inside the loop of the railroad. And when you got guys that are big as Baby Huey there, it really cuts down what we've done. So it was decided that we'd run the railroad with 3-man crews, which worked out pretty good. So the 2 guys that are in the middle are actually the switchmen. The guys holding the clipboards on the outside are the switch foreman, and the 2 guys, Bob Gretlet there in the foreground and the late Mike Moore in the blue shirt, they were the engineers. So my plan was to take this yard that you see here, get rid of that staging that's on the top of it, take it outside, turn it around and bring it back in and set it back in place facing the other direction. And then I would make a loop at the end and then put that yard in where the transfer area in the scale used to be. Hopefully you're sticking with me so far here. So when I started this, it looked like a 2010. Monday, toward the middle of April 2010, this shows the layout set up for the last operating session. We operated the railroad every 3 weeks. So I've got 3 weeks to tear this whole thing apart and put it back together again. And fortunately, I had tired that previous year, so I don't have to worry about leaving for 8 hours plus a day. I don't know why that F units and that caboose are sitting there, but they are in this photo. So here's the plan. I've taken off that part of that staging yard in the back. I plan to cut it right where the dotted line is, and then also at the other end. Here we've, Bob came over, we took it outside, spun it around, and then set it back down. So it's about in the location where it's going to stay now. Here you can see before and after, cutting it off, turned around, and putting it back in. Now this picture here, I'm trying to lay out anyway, the switches at the north end of that yard. It's a 4-track yard with a main line going down the center. I'm using curved turnouts here. See how things are going to work out. I always do things for real on 1-to-1 on cardboard rather than trying to draw anything, because that's, to me, is a waste of time. I did take it off here to do some electrical work because I needed to have power handier for the controls for the layout, and of course the receptacle in the lower right-hand corner is for the beer fridge, and that's mandatory. At the south end of that peninsula, I'm going to make a reverse curve here to get from this new yard I'm going to build back over to the section of the railroad from before. If you look straight ahead, you can see the Decker facility. It's a lot left out, I'll say it that way. Just some photographs on that short backdrop. Here's the template that I'm going to use to lay the track. There's a picture later on, but this curve was made with sectional radius, 18-inch radius with some 22-inch radius coming out of that basically bubble, if you will. And there I'm also putting in some of the new bench work or framing for the yard. This is a kind of blurry photo. We're 4 days into this operation now. And here you can see I've got most of the framework in place now. And going to continue on with that curve. Here I'm getting serious about actually laying out the curve with that sectional track. I had to do some modification to the framework that I made because it's out too far on one side, didn't stick out far enough on the other. Here's my piece of, I think it's a 10-inch foam that I cut out to put the track on. Same thickness as the homosote that was used on the other portion of the railroad. For some reason, I put hinges on this whole section of railroad, that whole peninsula. And I don't know why I did that unless it was to take it loose if there was some catastrophic failure with some of the house equipment in the basement, and this needed to be moved out of the way. Here we've got the homosote for the yard, the backdrops being put up. Another photo of the curve. You can see I scabbed in a piece to hold up that outside end of the curve. Backdrop up along what's now going to be the transfers and the rip track area. Day 6, we've been working on this for 6 days now, and we're ready for track. Fascia's on, backdrop's painted, the base has been painted. All we need is some rail. So on day 7, instead of resting, we went to up to the Twin Cities to buy some track. Here and now we're back home again, and I'm laying the stuff out for real. And it doesn't look anything like what I had originally planned. You can see in the upper right-hand corner my original plan, and then the way it actually worked out. All those wires on those turnouts, I used at the time I built the layout. Pico was the only people that made a less code than 100 in a code in a number 5 turnout. And I figured I needed that number 5 for space purposes. And so they made a code 75. It's an English version of track. By itself, it's okay. But when I went up and bought that microengineering track and laid it down, the other stuff looked like I should have thrown it away. But all those wires that you see sticking up, these things were what they called the electrofrogs, which they were power routing. And they do cause trouble when the points get dirty. So I've done some jumpering and these are feeders. It's going to feed the new operation. So they're going to work like a snap track switch, and we won't have to worry about problems with them anymore. This would be the south end of the yard, laying that out, putting switches in place, see how everything's going to go. And here's the track laid down, looking at it, looking towards the south, and then from the south, looking up north. On the curve, I decided that I wanted to, being as it was so tight, I wanted to super elevate it. I took some 25 thousandths rod and rolled that under the outside rail. What's important to know is yard track capacities. If you look in timetables, a lot of times they'll give you siding capacity. So here I figured out how many cars this yard could hold. And you see the bottom track, or track 4, it's going to have other purposes than just storing cars. If we move over the old section of railroad, if you look at the black print up in the upper left corner, you see the tracks running from the Emmett St. L to the Milwaukee all have a nice curve to them going to the bottom of the photo or the map. And there's 4 tracks that parallel each other in that General American facility. So I thought if I kept the tracks the way they should be and looking at the yellow lines, there wasn't going to be much capacity there. So I decided to turn the 2 Milwaukee transfer tracks and make them look like they were part of that General American facility, even though they weren't. Okay, I didn't get completely done before the operation, but here we are at the end of week 3, Monday night. The railroad is staged for operating. And the way this railroad is staged is similar to the branch line I model now, in that it's a captive system. And in this case, the cars that you see in the middle yard, the unfinished yard there, there are cars that are going to get used on the layout. And those guys are kept off on shelving and then set on the layout for this particular, whatever day of the week this operation has to be. If you look at the left, you'll see 4 cars in the trolley transfer, and up further north, there's 3 up toward the top. There's 3 cars on at least 3 cars, maybe more, on the transfer with Milwaukee. And all of that stuff, well, these cars will all be used and spotted on the railroad somewhere, and cars will be brought back from being picked up by either the adjoining railroads or through freights. Now this is where we kind of skip ahead, but we're going to go back again because there's more photos of before the layout was finished. But there you saw that I had painted the track and ballasted it, and here I'm putting down glue and now adding some static grass to put a little bit of weed growth in the track, so it looks like this after it's vacuumed up. Hopefully I'm sitting right next to the router, so hopefully this goes faster than when I'm at the other end of the house. Being my wife is gone today, so I'm able to yak all I want right here in the kitchen. So now we're going to go back before the 3-week period, and we're going to look at that Swift plant that we're going to put down in the basically next to the stairs where you come down the stairs. The headroom track or the main line south of town will be under the stairs. It'll be that dotted line you see there. Before, this is where it was before, and the real Swift plant was accessed by both the St. L and the Northwestern. There were 2 tracks alongside the plant and switches at either end, and then one went to the Northwestern and one went to the St. L. And they would put derails just past those switches, so the other railroad had enough room to get an engine down there to run around the cars. But that was, again, you see the Northwestern track here crossing the St. L in the lower right. So again, I'm drawing this all out on cardboard to see how things are going to fit in there. And I'm drawing where I need to cut my base. I really go overboard with my bench work. I feel this is more than enough to hold up. It's going to stand there. You know, I don't need to make a cabinetry grade material here. And then here's a piece of probably plywood or OSB board with a homozone on top. Another look at it. What I do with these buildings that basically truncate into the aisle is I make the back wall a little longer so I can screw them in place so they don't get moved around. This is getting better. Like I say, there was more work done to this before the railroad was dismantled. I don't have any of that in this particular piece, but this is at least is permissible and ready to use. Problem with working with homozone is it's real tough stuff. So here I put this knuckle grinder and a 1/2-inch drill and ground the crap out of things to make pitches on either side of the main line. This is where the Northwestern would have crossed south of town. I have grass in place. I'm going to leave some room here for fields, and I don't know if the fields are finished in this little piece or not. But anyway, they're going to be just plowed fields, as this was spring on my piece layout. Okay, now what we're looking at here is south end of the transfer area. Here's the middle. You can see the trolley off to the right. Now this is the track leading into it's getting ahead of me here. But anyway, the photos that are on the backdrop are the same photos that I'm using now on my present layout. And what you can see in this photo is I've tried touching up the trees with craft paint. Just at this time, all I was using was a fan brush. And here you can see the mad artist. I haven't got much of a collection of craft paint yet, but I'm working at it. You don't need, you know, people talk about how narrow you need to make your layout. You know, some people say everybody goes basically with 24 inches, which is really a waste of space unless you're mounting something pretty big. This is about 5 inches wide, and it works for just going from one place to another. So now we're going to look at, you know, if we look at the arrow here, I'm not sure what that arrow is for, but it shows that we're basically done going north to that loop. And then we've got to do the yard side. We've got, there was a foundry there. There was what I always called a rail fan house. There was a house in this little space between the Milwaukee and the Emmons-St. right at the yard throat of the Emmons-St. And the only people that lived there had to be rail fans. Named it the rail fan house. There's also the Carmen shed, and there was a distribution company along that track 4 there. But first, it looks like we're going to talk about First Street, which crossed at grade just before the yard. This is a photo I took in 2010. This is a photo from 1966. As you can see, there ain't a hell of a lot of difference here from one photo to the other. The most prominent difference is basically the city water, which is the blue one that's used for probably for fire department. The yellow one would be fire department. The blue one is city. And you can see that the street signs are green now instead of white. So here's my photo that I've kind of touched up a little bit, or will touch up. And I made the street, this is about the time I was being introduced to Tom Johnson and what he was doing. And he liked to make roads by using cork and then covering them with fine gravel and glue mixture. And then you pat that all down. So this was my attempt at Tom Johnson Road. Here you can see it fitting into the backdrop. This is a blurry photo. I think I'm putting down some full strength glue and then spreading it around my finger. Obviously, my wife took all my brushes away from me. This photo, I think, is just demonstrating that you put down static grass on the glue, and then later you come back and spray it with hairspray, so you can add that coarser ground foam to give it that leafy material look. I've managed to get an old brush back, I see. This would be First Street looking south at the yard throat. This would be a through train setting out and picking up. This is my version. And one thing what you notice looking at this one is the truck rail's way too big when you look at this one here. But that's what I was using at the time. And this is another view of that same photo. Here we go. Track's looking a little better here. We're kind of hiding it with grass. The rail height doesn't show up quite so bad. This is the clean out area on track 4 at the middle yard. The Carmen used to clean out cars there coming into town, and then they would be sent to up north cement plant or to Deckers or whoever needed them. Here in this photo, static grass is down in the yard. These photos that I use still today over and over and over again. These trees have all cut down now. They're not there anymore. This is my backdrop, and here I've spliced them together and stuck them on there. What's kind of interesting is there's a Speedwitch car, a Tangent car, and a Sunshine car, the Mopac, and they're all gone now. I don't own any of them. Now we're going to look at the buildings that have to be built. There's some Foundry sheds we're going to have to make, the Kerman shack, and the distributing along with the rail fan house. So basically, this is looking at that area, an aerial of that area. The green dotted line is where the fascia is, or the blue one, and the red one would be the backdrop. And I've got an arrow pointing to that distributing, and also one to the Foundry. This is 8th Street. This is the street at the south end of the yard. We're crossing the, right in front of us there is the Milwaukee IM division line going up to Austin, Minnesota. Again, I used the Tom Johnson Road here, took a photo of the actual street, put that on. I've used this photo again on my current layout. And as you're looking at these things, you see how things progress to get more actually more pleasing to the eye, I would say. This is a fantastic photo. Everybody thinks me on the ground with the red bike. I did have a red bike, but my dad's the engineer on the train, and I'm going to be about 15 blocks from home here. And if he would have saw me standing there with the bike, he would have got off the engine and beat me with the bike. Another picture of that same kind of scene. Here we're looking at the Foundry, the railfan house, and that quill distributing. We're looking at quill. Bottom photos from 50, top is from 64. So we're going to be modeling 54, so we're going to be closer to the bottom one. Top photo here is trackside, and the bottom photo would be towards the aisle. And here everything is painted and fastened in place, ready for use. Okay, now we got to fit in the railfan house and some shacks or some sheds from the Foundry in this space here between the 8th Street and the yard fattening out. Here's what we're going to build it. You can see in this colored, another classic Soft Marty photo. We got the M&S switch job working in the yard. We got the main line train coming through the freight, and we got the Milwaukee I&M train coming down from Austin, waiting for the MS&L train to go past. Really neat photograph. But in this picture, you can pretty much see my comparison. The blue arrow at the top is shows the quill and my version of it, and then the little green line goes from the shed at the Carmen shed, and I think I've used that shed over again on my railroad now. I know I've used these two sheds that I made for the brown ones that I made for the Foundry. They're serving at Carlsberg as sheds for the lumber yard. Probably discarded the little brick building there, and I think the railfan house is over at Bob Gretlett's house now. This is a little better view showing the Carmen shack and the sheds at the Foundry. You got to have crap. You build resin kits, you always get lots of stuff that you have no idea what it is. And so I save it all. I painted up a bunch of it and thrown it around the sheds. Railfan house is pretty much it's no longer there, but from the photos that Soft took, come close. Hung some sheets out back. House number, had to do some investigating to figure out what that house number should be. Mailbox out front. Looking south here, and you can see that I've added the extra detail, throwing some stuff around the Carmen shack. The Foundry used to make sewer lid covers, metal covers, and also storm drains, among other things. They made pulleys and shivs. But I punched out a bunch of brass raised circles there and painted them up to be like sewer covers, manhole covers, waiting to be loaded in a car. Another photo, kind of a comparison. You can't get a good, a perfect comparison because of the size of everything and trying to fit your camera in. It just doesn't work. So if we look at the railroad the way it is after the 3-week extension, you see at the top there's a yard, kind of a cement plant yard that I modeled instead of having to model the cement plants themselves. Just a few blocks or south of the plants is the Armor packing house. A few blocks south of there, we have the Elm Creek Bridge. I used to live basically where, if I can use this is Andrews Concrete. And we used to live right over here when we first moved to Mesa City. My dad could walk the engine house and back, and we could have a run on the railroad. But you can see here, the station is down here. Then there's other industry along here to be served. And then at the south end of this scene would be the Will Creek Bridge. This is like a 40-foot drop down to the water here. So the railroad is running on a fill on this side. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now we're looking, this is 8th Street down here, looking up where 1st Street is. Got this in the way, get out of my way. The railroad got off fill and was back on solid ground here, but the whole yard tilted slightly to the north. And once in a while, a car would get away here and it would roll all the way down to Deckers, all the way through town, all the way up to Deckers. And then it would kind of sashay back and forth until it found a resting place. So it was not cool to have a car get away from in here. And then south of that middle yard, now that we've added that, we have the transfer with Milwaukee, which is curved here, curved area here. That rip track area is right here. Then this would be the transfer with the trolley down here. And then last, but I didn't put in there, was the Swift plant south out of town. So this would be, I might kind of change that drawing that was in prepping around and added that middle yard in here. Took this piece, which was here, put it over here, added this extension back this way, made this loop, and then put this yard in. So the railroad now operated the way the railroad was supposed to operate. Worked good up until it had to go. And that is the end.
Very nice.
No questions.
Were you using your method where you were able to build some of that on the workbench? It looked like one of those pieces.
No, this railroad was all built in place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't have room for, I didn't have that table at the time. That table was given to me by Bob Grett, and it weighs about 8,000 pounds. And I don't know if his arm has ever recovered from helping me move that in the basement or not. But it was down there for family functions, but that only happens a couple times a year. And now one of my granddaughters has a house with an empty basement, so we don't even use it anymore.
Okay. You had one of your diagrams showed a cement plant, I think, and it looked like the top track in that didn't go anywhere.
Just a second. I know where that. We could look at other things. If I can find that, here, I gotta be getting close. I think it's stacked in here. I can do this. Okay, this is the one.
Yeah, that's it. See right up the
Okay.
top track there? It looks like it's isolated.
Yeah, see, this is one of the cement plants, a small little bitty portion of it. The other cement is up here where it says 25th Street, on the other side of this gravel road. Originally, the M&L came in to this plant, Northwestern States, Holcim now, on a trestle. Okay, this is a fill. And they came in on a trestle that went way down here. All this was trestle. But when they widened Highway 65 here, they tore the trestle out. So what they did then is they also had a track up here that went into Lehigh cement. And there was a yard up here. I have tracks, I think. The Lehigh's way over here, but they had this yard here where there was a joint yard between the Great Western and the M&L, where they could store cars. And the M&L actually came off of there with a switch into this cement plant here. So what I did was basically just modeled as much of this as what you see here.
Mhm.
So I've got this would be the Great Western track. This would be a combination track, and these two are the MSL tracks. Now I only have a little bit of room for headroom here, because this is actually a wall right here. And on the other side of the wall is a shower. And next to the shower is the softener, water softener.
Right.
And it was too tall to be able to get behind it. So I told my wife it broke, and I was able to go out and buy a smaller one. And then I told her I was going to run the track back there, and she said, "No, you're not." And then she went away, and I knocked a hole in the wall and put the track in. So I had room for probably 4 or 5 cars up there. I don't remember now, but you could actually, they would pull the cars up here and then bring them in and shove them in here. And I think they actually, I'm not sure if I remember right, if we did this, if we actually pulled what was there first and then brought cars back later. I don't really remember, but you know, there would have to be headroom for at least 8 cars to be able to put cars in and take cars out of here.
Right.
Because we would have 3 or 4 cars of bag cement, box cars, a bag cement here, and 4 covered hoppers of bulk. And then they could also get loads in. Paper bags would be one particular load. Gypsum, coal would be another one they would bring in.
Okay.
So that answers that.
Yeah, the other question I had was just on that new yard that you built. Were you just using the track going around the curve then as a lead?
Yes, yeah. The track going around the curve was the south lead. Here it is. Yeah, if you were the yard was worked from the south end. So only the trains that were northbound would pick up and set off of this end.
Okay.
So the switch engines, that was a job that worked Deckers, and then there was a job that worked the cement plants, this area, and the transfers. And they would all take their turn here at the yard and use this curve as their lead when they were setting cars in here.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it was a nice railroad. It served its purpose.
And you're in the same, your new layout's in the same space, right?
Basically, no, in a different house.
Oh, it's a different
That's
house.
why this
Okay, I
one
was wondering about
yeah,
that.
we moved. That's why this one got torn down.
All right.
Because you went down the stairs here, and then the furnace was here. There used to be a water heater here. I put the water heater back here. A lot of screwing around down here to get space for the layout.
Mhm.
But the new basement is probably half again as long as this space. But
Okay.
again, I only use about the same amount of space for the layout I have now.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, the difference would be the layout I have now would run along this wall and down along here, and these two ends would be open.
Okay.
Anyway, that's that.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Clark. That was very entertaining and informative. We have Lester on deck for next week, and I can't remember what he's presenting on. Something with his new railroad, something new on his railroad. We saw his stuff in the spring, I want to say. Let's see. I think if I may be able to pop over here real quick and see what it's called. It is going to be the interchanges on his Minneapolis and Northland Railroad. And we will do that again at 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. So, and of course, it'll be recorded and put up on YouTube. So I'm not sure if we got any new guys today. It looks like maybe we do. Welcome. We welcome anybody who wants to present. You can present a layout tour or some technique that you're using, or if you took pictures while you expanded your railroad or did something new, we'd love to see it. So you've got my email. If you're on here, more than likely, I'm Greg at Uncle Heavy. Yeah, that's an old band I used to play in with my brother. The band is defunct, but now I named my railroad after it. So it was not a reference to me or my brother's weight. It was actually that I used to play a Hammond organ that weighed 400 pounds. And so that we called the organ Uncle Heavy. And there are lots of stories there. But anyway, feel free to get a hold of me if you'd like to give a presentation. We're affiliated with the Michiana division of NMRA. So if you're in the achievement program, and you want to get points for giving clinics and things like this, I don't see why this type of thing wouldn't count. So so that's one advantage for doing that. So we'd love to have you do that. It's a friendly group. No one's gonna make fun of you or criticize, how many rivets are on your locomotive or anything like that. So, well, we might, but all in good fun. And so just let me know if you're interested in doing that, or you can contact Ron as well. And
Saturday meeting.
What's that?
Don't forget the Saturday meeting.
Yeah, so Saturday we have an outing to the Elkhart Model Railroad Museum in Elkhart. The details are on our website, which is Michiana. Just Google Michiana NMRA and you'll find it. That's what I do. I don't even know the address. And
Michiana-nmra.org.
there you go. And so yeah, we'd love to see you there. The hours for the railroad are on the website. But I think we're going to get together at 11 o'clock Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. It might be noon, but all those details are on the website. So check that out if you're interested in joining us. We have a lot of fun, a lot of real good guys. So hope to see you there. And thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you next week at 5:30.
Thanks, Greg. It was great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Clark.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.